Jai Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Buddhavadikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Buddhavadikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiri. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of March 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 7, Indra offends his spiritual master, Brahaspati. Text number 36. Okay. Yes, 36. Akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriya katam vigaryam nukaromi adishvaraha parodasam rishyati yena durmatihi akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha katam vigaryam nukarom yadishvaraha parodasam rishyati yena durmatihi akinchananam hidanam shilochinam I'm sorry. Akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha katam vigaryam nukarom yadishvarah parodhasam rishyati yena durmatihi akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha katam vigaryam nukarom yadishvaraha parodhasam rishyati yena durmatihi akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha katam vigaryam nukarom yadishvara parodhasam nishyati yena durmatihi. Akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha katam vigaryam nukarom yadishvara parodhasam rishyati yena durmatihi akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha parodhasam rishyati ishara. Go ahead. Parodhasam rishyati yena durmatihi. Ladies? Akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam teneha nirvartita sadhu satkriyaha Yam hinurom nadishwara. Parodha samhrishyati yena durmatihi. Akinchananam hidanam shilonchanam. Tene nirvatita sadhu satkriyaha. Katam vigaryam nukarom yadishwaraha. Parodha samhrishyati yena durmatihi. Just give me 1 second, I want to see something. Okay. All right. Happy birthday. It's today's appearance day. I've got it right around here on my reminders. Hare Krishna. We haven't seen you much lately. Okay, so I'm sorry about the interrupter, but it was worth it. All right, one note before I read the word by words. You know more about Sanskrit than probably any of us. No? Anyway, my understanding is that the, like in satkriyaha, kicking of that syllable, actually pronouncing, is only on at the end of a line. Now, well, this one is the end of a line. No, there's only 2 lines to each verse. And when we have the way it's written here, the end of the second line is actually the end of the first line, and this line ends with durmatihi, which is proper. But this one shouldn't be kicked, adishwara. And I'm sorry, I did it once and you were following, right? Adishwara, adishwara, but not adishwaraha. And you did it right. So just for future reference. Akinchananam, of persons who have taken to austerities and penances to become detached from worldly possessions. He, certainly. Dhanam, the wealth. Shila, the collecting of grains left in the field. One more little note on Sanskrit. Notice that how important the long A's are. Shila means a stone, like shalagram shila. Shila means the collecting of grains left in the field. I think long I means the behavior, right? Shila. So very important to get those diacritics right. Unchanam, and the collecting of grains left in the wholesale marketplace. Tena, by that means. Iha, here. Nirvartita, accomplishing. Sadhu, of the exalted devotees. Satkriyaha, all the pious activities. Katam, how. Vigarhyam, reproachable. Nu, indeed. Karomi, I shall execute. Adishwaraha, O great governors of the planetary systems. Parodasam, the duty of priesthood. Rishyati, is pleased. Yena, by which. Durmatihi, one who is less intelligent. So this is Vishwarup answering the demigods who appealed to him to become their priest, so they could get some of their strength back to fight the demons. O exalted governors of various planets, the true Brahman, who has no material possessions, maintains himself by the profession of accepting shilonchana. In other words, he picks up grains left in the field and on the ground in the wholesale marketplace. By this means, householder Brahmins who actually abide by the principles of austerity and penance maintain themselves and their families and perform all necessary pious activities. A Brahmin who desires to achieve happiness by gaining wealth through professional priesthood must certainly have a very low mind. How shall I accept such priesthood? Purport. A first-class Brahmin does not accept any rewards from his disciples or yajamanas. Practicing austerities and penances, he instead goes to the agricultural field and collects food grains left by the agriculturists to be collected by Brahmins. Similarly, such Brahmins go to marketplaces where grains are purchased and sold wholesale, and there they collect grains left by the merchants. In this way, such exalted Brahmins maintain their bodies and families. Such priests never demand anything from their disciples to live in opulence, imitating Kshatriyas or Vaishyas. In other words, a pure Brahmin voluntarily accepts a life of poverty and lives in complete dependence on the mercy of the Lord. Not very many years ago, a Brahmin in Krishnanagar, near Navadvip, was offered some help from the local Zamindar, Raj Krishnachandra. The Brahmin refused to accept the help. He said that since he was very happy in his household life, taking rice given by his disciples and cooking vegetables of tamarind leaves, which he had a tamarind tree, he was cooking it. There was no question of taking help from the Zamindar. The conclusion is that although a Brahmin may receive much opulence from his disciples, he should not utilize the rewards of his priesthood for his personal benefit. He must use them for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So the word Purohit is here in a little different form, isn't it? Parodasam, the duty of priesthood, the duty of the priest. So Prabhupada explains, I think in a different purport, that there's these 6 duties of the Brahman: Yajna Yajna, Patan Patan, Yajna Yajna, Dana and Pratigraha. So Patan Patan means to study the Shastra and to teach the Shastra. And Yajna Yajna means to perform sacrifices and teach others how to perform sacrifices. And Dana Pratigraha means to accept charity, but to give charity. To give the charity, in other words, to others, not to keep it for one's own sense gratification. So this Yajna Yajna also includes, here he goes about the Yajamanas, this idea of priesthood. Priesthood means performing sacrifices for certain purposes, and those purposes may be material. We have our own Purohit in Dharma Setu Prabhu, and he's in great demand. He travels all over the country. And the typical thing would be for a marriage, or for a death ceremony, and all these different things. And even though the motive may be somewhat materialistic, the people asking him to do it for their benefit, he always injects as much Krishna consciousness as possible, So, and this is a way for the Brahmin to also prosper. They get that. But here he's saying that one should not accept rewards from his disciples or yajamanas. In other words, there's a certain standard here, and I'm going to deal with this, how this whole pastime is trying to teach us something. And because it's in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is wholly and solely dedicated to Krishna and his disciple and his devotees and devotional service, his avatars. That's the whole idea. Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all the Vedas, which is the pure devotional service. That's the practice being taught. Whereas others, like you have whole sections of the Vedas where they tell you all kinds of sacrifices to perform so you can go to the heavenly planets, and all, which is karma kanda. And that's Vyasadeva was dissatisfied having written that. He'd written so much of that. He hadn't written a book just wholly and solely about Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and devotional service. And Narada Muni encouraged him, now you do that. And this is what Bhagavatam is. So this is Bhagavatam we're reading. So what's the overall lesson here? Well, first of all, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the standard for the Brahman, now, of course, you have, it's the Varnashram system. So you've got the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. This is a social classes, right, for the organization of society. Then you have the spiritual orders of the Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas for the real essence of the whole thing, which is to develop Krishna consciousness. But it's also important to have the Varnas organized properly and that they're also focused on ultimately spiritual matters. We know that the verse Atak Pumbha Dhyashesta Varna Ashrama Vibhagasha Swanusitasya Dharmasya Sangsidhir Haditoshanam. That the perfection of the Varna and the ashram system is to satisfy Krishna, not to develop some materialistic caste system in which the Brahmins are lording it over everyone and they're just Brahmins by birth. It's corruption. They have to have the guna and the karma, the activities and the qualities also. So what do we have here? Now we have this Brahman, Vishwarup. By the way, he has 3 heads. We'll learn that later. And he has certain allegiances to the demons as well. Yes, and this was warned at the beginning. You can ask for him to become your priest, because the whole problem is they offended Brahaspati and they lost their tejas for that, and the demons were becoming more powerful. And if you recall, they were all injured in a battle. They had all these injuries from the sharp. That's happened already, I think. So they need another spiritual master. And so it was advised, okay, you can get Vishwarup as your spiritual master. I think it was Brahma who advised, right? So that required the permission of Tvashta, his father, right? He had to approve it. Eventually we'll see that. He approves, okay, But the problem is that you're dealing with Indra. And if you know one thing about Indra, is that sometimes his senses, his lower self takes over his higher self, and he does something impulsive that he later regrets, like anything. Right? I mean, we're sitting here in New Govardhan, you're reminded of it daily. So that's the most famous one, but he's constantly doing that. And he did it here. He felt so intoxicated with his wealth and power that his spiritual master walks in and he just ignores him. So the spiritual master didn't curse him. He just walked out and withdrew his support, basically. And now they suddenly went, oh, now we don't have any strength, and the demons understood and they took advantage of it. So they want to get by this Vishwarup chanting mantras, because he's expert at that. They figure this is going to help us get our, mojo back, so to speak. So the whole thing is material, ultimately. They're not like, please instruct us in devotional service. It's not like that. So this is the problem. And now Vishwarup, he's seeing, exalted governors of it, so he's being very deferential, and he's going to take the post willingly. And importantly enough, Tvashta, he approves of that, so he's involved, he's giving permission, the father. And ultimately what happens is that this is all involved with Chitraketu. Did we read about Chitraketu already? I don't know if we read about it. I think we're going to come to that. And he was a king with millions of wives, but none of them get pregnant. He had no son, so he's in great anxiety. Then eventually Narada Muni comes, I think, and he has a chief wife, she blesses her, and she gets pregnant, and he has a son. So naturally he's favoring this wonderful son, the heir, and all the other wives are ignored. So they become jealous, envious, and they kill the son. It's ghastly. And then there's this incredible scene where Chitraketu finds out, and he's banging his head, he's walking through the palace, he's banging his head against the walls, and he's distraught. And what will happen, Narada Muni comes back and brings the son back to life. Sound familiar? It's just like Lord Chaitanya with Shiva's Thakur's son. And the son starts preaching, who is my real father? I've had so many fathers before, I was destined to leave and everything. So it kind of, it really affects Chitraketu. He becomes then determined that he renounces, and he takes a mantra from Narada, I think, and he starts chanting in like 1 week, and he realizes God, this whole thing. So then he's gotten a tremendous, benefit from that. Then he's riding around on an airplane, traveling, and he sees Lord Shiva with Parvati, and they're surrounded by all these great sages, and Parvati's on his lap, and he says, what is this? This is all these great sages, and Shiva's giving instructions. And so he laughs, and Shiva doesn't care, but Parvati is very angry. She curses him to become a demon. And he accepts it, because he's a great devotee, basically. He made this mistake, he takes it. So then he becomes this demon Vritrasura. Now, Vritrasura is the name means that he can swallow the universe. You know, he can expand. It's a huge thing. So he's doing battle on the side of the demons with the demigods. And meanwhile, Indra has gotten this thunderbolt made from the bones of the Dichi. This was they had to pray to the Lord, and he advised. So Dichi gave his body. He's so renounced. He was a great devotee. He gave his body, and for this purpose, ghastly. You know, so he's got this thunderbolt made of bones, carved, I assume, and so he is invincible. And so they do battle, you know, and the Tvashta, the father, becomes enraged that he approved of his son being the guru, and then Indra, what happened, Indra was spying on Tvashta, and he's offering some oblations to the demons because he has some loyalty to them. There's something in his family line like that. So Indra says, what is this? You know, and he flies off the handle, cuts off his 3 heads. They turn into different kinds of partridges. It's in the Bhagavatam. Or is it partridges or pigeons? Anyway, there it is. So what is this? Here's Tvashta, who made the sacrifice, who says, yes, I'll do it. It's all very nice. But then the whole what I'm getting at is the whole thing is like materially motivated. It's not for the glorification of Krishna and Narayan, you know. Even though he's going to give the Narayan Kavacha. But that's also, if I'm in some trouble now, I'm going to chant the Narayan Kavacha. What about when you're not in trouble? You know, it's just this materialistic use of the holy name. So this is we're reading the first part of this pastime. So here but here, just in terms of the verse we're studying here, the attitude of the Brahmins in the story Prabhupada is telling about this Brahmin who, I don't know if it was during his time or it was a well-known story, that, you know, here's a Zamindar who has all this wealth. Zamindar means a big landholder, right? And he offered to help the Brahmins. But wanting to keep his independence, this is the key. Because you get the Brahmins, now they're often called upon to advise the kings, right? You had Chitragupta with Chanakya, was it Chitragupta? And famously Chanakya, you know, Chanakya Pandit. Why did Prabhupada quote Chanakya Pandit so much, you know, in his lectures mostly, and sometimes in the purports? He was taught these moral codes. He had the Chanakya Shlok when he was a child, so he knows them by heart, you know. So he brings them in when they're appropriate, you know. So Chanakya, he was giving this advice to Chitragupta, and one time he didn't take the advice. He says, all right, I quit. He quit. He said, if you're not going to take my advice. Because he wasn't like beholden because, he's giving me this big salary. Today, those who could be Brahmins, they have the mind, the intelligence, they're all bought off by the politicians or by, you know, the billionaires and everything. And they'll write, you know, they write very well, but they maybe not even write the truth. They'll write something else that will please whoever's paying to them. This is the corruption of the Brahmanical class. The Brahmins need the wealth of the Brahmins, as we learned, is their austerity. They can say, he didn't even, I'm perfectly fine, I'm just taking these tamarind leaves from my tree and boiling them, that's my vegetable. And I get the rice from whatever's left over in the fields or the marketplaces scattered around. And in this way I'm supporting his family. Wow, you know. No cell phones, no car, you know, I mean, you don't have to get a big bank account. So it's a different, you know, consciousness. But the advantage is that you're free. You're not beholden to anybody, you know, except Krishna. That's the whole idea. And what is, you know, everything belongs to God. Everything belongs to Krishna. It should be used for his purpose. So that's the wealth of the Brahmins. And of course, real Brahmins are Vaishnavas. That's what's said verse. Janmana jayate shudra, sanskarat bhaved dvija, vedapatat bhaved vipra, brahmajanaditi brāhmaṇa. So everyone's born a Shudra, right? You're just born an ignorant little child. But by samskars, Garbhadan samskar especially, which is before even conception, and others, samskars that go forward, you become dvija, right? Yes. And then by studying the Shastra, you become a vipra, learned. And then by actually practicing devotional service and realizing Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, you become a real Brahman. That's why Brahman Vaishnav, a real Brahman is a Vaishnav. And the Vaishnav is supposed to have Brahmanical qualities also. So what's going on here is that Indra and demigods, they're all dealing on the material platform. And they fight this war against the demons who are led by Vritrasura, who's really a devotee, Chitraketu, with this external of a demon, you know? So this incredible scene where Indra throws that thunderbolt, and Vritrasura, because he's expanded himself, he catches it like this. There's a nice painting. You know, didn't have any effect. Airavata, this powerful carrier of the elephant, he charges him, but he knocks him back so many yards. You know, so eventually Indra is able to slay Vritrasura, who wanted to be slain, get out of the demon body, go back to Godhead. And the high point of the whole thing for me, of the whole pastime, which goes on for chapters, is the prayers of Vritrasura. He's lying there on the battlefield. He's got his arms and legs chopped off. He's like bleeding out. And Indra is trying to cut off his head. It took him a year because he had this big thick neck. But meanwhile, he's offering these prayers, and he's saying, I'm just like a little baby bird outside the nest. Here's this big demon, you know. Please, you know, or like a wife who's separated from her beloved, and like that. Please let me back in your, you know, in your good graces, O Lord. And the aham hare tapaparai kamula dasano dasa babidasmi bhuya. Padang hare, I forget the rest of it. But aham hare tapaparai kamula. When, oh when will I be again allowed to be next to your lotus feet? You know, it's an incredible contrast. Big, huge demon, you know, in this ghastly scene, but he's offering these sweet little prayers. Jayadvaita Swami gave a class on that verse I just chanted by meditating on Vritrasura. Because it's longing, when will I again, you know, may I again be at your lotus feet, may I again have the association of devotees. He's revealing his real nature as a devotee inside. So, but the Bhagavatam is teaching us something here, and this is one of the lessons. We're going to hear, I think he gives them the Narayan Kavacha. Do we have Narayan Kavacha already? Because I missed the class. And Narayan Kavacha, a lot of devotees took it up. There's incredible, detailed instructions how to chant it. You chant this, you know, on your fingers, and then you chant it syllable by syllable, then you chant it backwards, and you know, it's all this stuff. And if any danger comes, you chant this Narayan Kavacha. Some devotees were chanting it. And I was thinking, okay, that's good, you know, but do I really learn that and really need to learn that? Isn't Hare Krishna enough? Is enough for Haridas Thakur. Then Hare Krishna, Krishna protection, you know. And the point is that, yes, calling out to Krishna for protection, that's done. You know, Vrajlila, you see it all the time. The fire comes, the devotees come, Indra pours down. That's part of devotion. It's not in the said, oh, I'm not going to call on Krishna because it's just a material thing, you know, for protection. But it's part of the whole way in which Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. And he promises, my devotee never perishes. So, and what happens in the end is that Indra realizes, oh my God, what have I done? I offended Brahaspati, I killed the Brahman, Vishwarup, and then I killed another Brahman, Vritrasura, because he was invoked. This is another thing. That Trashta was infuriated. Here he approved his son becoming the priest, you know, and now he got killed by Indra. So he called all of his own Brahmins together. Now we're going to perform a sacrifice, and we're going to invoke a demon who'll kill Indra. You know, but he was so upset that he mischanted one word. Instead of getting a demon who will kill Indra, the way grammatically, he got a demon whom Indra will kill and send back to Godhead. You see? So, the importance of pronouncing properly. I always like to, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, look it up in the dictionary, is sex life. Rama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So be careful when you Rama, as opposed to Rama. You hear the difference? That diacritic makes a big difference. Shastra and Shastra. You know, one is a weapon, the other is the book, the good books. But they share something, and that is the root. Shas means to control. You know, so Shastra is what you agree to be controlled by when you're intelligent. Otherwise, Shastra. Durga has so many weapons, right? You'll be in the material energy, so you're controlled by that. And then there's the Shishya, which has the same root, and that's the disciple who agrees to be controlled by the Guru. That's it. Prabhupada explained it that way one time. So, and the purport Prabhupada goes into the idea of the glory of being austere. We learned this early on. Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. It seems like an oxymoron, but it's not. Being austere. And Prabhupada always includes this, austerities and penances. And I point out, yes, penances are austerities you undergo specifically to atone for sins. And oftentimes they're prescribed by the church. That's where it came from. Penance, repentant. You have to be repentant. Otherwise, you perform austerities, but it can be like Hiranyakashipu, to become all powerful and conquer the universe, right? So, and austerities are legion everywhere in this material world. People are performing extraordinary austerities, but they're all for to get this job, to go here, to become a big athlete or something. But it's misuse of austerity. The whole universe begins with austerity. You remember Lord Brahma? He didn't know what to do. Tapa, tapa. And if you didn't hear me that time, tapa, 3 times. Says, oh, now I get it. Okay, so he meditates, and then he's inspired. Krishna initiates him through the heart. He gets knowledge. He knows what to do. So austerity is essential for advancement. It's a way of becoming powerful. And what we really want to do is to be powerful means to get control over the mind and senses so that they don't control us. And then we voluntarily come under the control of Krishna. I mean, they happen simultaneously. You pray to Krishna for the strength to practice bhakti better and like that, It's all for that purpose. So tapa, just like a weapon, can be used for good or evil. Power can be used. Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins, but it's understood that they're meant to use it for good purposes, for advancement in devotional service, and for giving good advice, whether to the Kshatriyas and to all others. Brahmins, real Brahman is Vaishnava. That's the idea. And then Prabhupada concludes, although a Brahmin may receive much opulence from his disciples, he should not utilize it for his personal benefit. He must use it for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada showed the perfect example of that. He wasn't attached. He was completely detached. He came to America with nothing, and he depended on Krishna. He wouldn't compromise the message in order to get more disciples, so he could, which is legion. These yogis come and they said, yeah, do whatever you want, just come, and the mantra though will cost you. Now it used to be $35. Now it's probably over $1,000, But this mantra is very secret. It comes down from ancient times, like that. Oh, okay. They're just cheaters. They're cheating people. You get people that are interested in, they don't know what they want. Their spiritual life, something, So Prabhupada came to give the authentic thing. He wouldn't compromise. I was spent a little time with the there I enunciate it, Ramakrishna Mission in New York. They have a very nice place there. I don't know if you ever seen it. I'm sure they have a nice place in the West Coast too. And I was taken, and I would go there, and I even got part of the inner circle, and I was able to go to the lunch. I was real into raw food. And believe it or not, the leader who had come to replace Nikalananda, who Prabhupada met, he was the leader of the Ramakrishna Mission in the late 60s. Prabhupada went to him, and I'm sure he was dressed in a suit. And he was trying to tell him, well, you have to give up these robes, give up that, don't worry about the 4 regs, it doesn't work here. Prabhupada wouldn't hear of it, So I saw him some years later. He had already had a stroke. He was still there. They were taking care of him. And, he'd come to the dinner table. So you invite to the afternoon dinner, So I was there with my little tiffin-like thing. It wasn't called a tiffin. And I'd pull out my raw thing. I didn't know what I was, but that's what I was doing at the time. And there was the leader who'd come to replace him, young man. He'd spent time in the Himalayas meditating. He had some tejas. He read my mind. I was attending lectures, and he said, "You work in a hospital, don't you?" I practically fell over. How do you know that? He had some powers. So he's sitting at the head of the table with a steak. Yeah, I swear to God. So at that time, I wasn't like, it wasn't a game breaker for me at the time, but it was kind of odd, So anyway, I escaped from there. Luckily, I had bought Nikhilananda's translation of the Sharirika Bhashya. Some knows what that is. That's Shankaracharya's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Lord Chaitanya says, anyone who hears the Mayavadi Bhashya is ruined, is finished. I bought it, but I never read it. I joined before. I threw it away. But so I experienced that, this cheating, going on. And I was saved from that because I was getting attracted to devotees, and he knew that. He wanted me to stay with him. They were looking for young men, and there were some other godbrothers of mine who were there. And he started blaspheming the devotees and criticizing because he knew I was going. And instead of me drawing to him and broke my attachment, I took shelter to the temple. Thank God, Krishna helped me. But this is part of the cheating mentality. They were established way before Prabhupada came. From the famous, was it 1898 or 1896 when Vivekananda came and addressed Chicago, the religions. He was a very good speaker, very well educated, and blew everyone away. You're all God. You can imagine. Oh, all right. And they made many inroads. But Prabhupada's movement, started as small, this and that. But it's a genuine thing. And those who really took it, they became empowered to spread it. And, and we should realize that that's where the real power is, and where the real bliss is in being as simple as possible and dedicating as much of your energy, your time, your intelligence, everything to the service to Krishna. And that's really the essence of devotional service. And the rewards, even if you don't make much advancement, nothing is lost, But in any other endeavor that's based on material aspirations and so-called success, it's all lost. Before or after, at least when you die, it's lost, And what are you left with? Another body, another material body in this world to fight with. It's really an incredible, I don't know what you call it. You would call it a con. Mayadevi is conning you to think that, this is how you can be happy. Look, obviously, here these people are happy. They're enjoying like anything. You can do it too, And there may be some moral code. Okay, we don't go that far, but we'll go over here and do this, And without the real knowledge coming down, I gave this little talk up in L.A. on the Dashamula, the 10 roots of the philosophy as gleaned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the instructions of Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami in the Madhya Lila. And what is the purpose of learning that? There's at the end he gives the benefits of learning it. You become a good devotee basically. And he wrote a book called Dashamula Tattva, I believe, where he expands on it. Actually, I didn't mention that. But it's what you find in Prabhupada's books, what you find in Bhagavad Gita. First of all, what is important is to understand, how do we know these points? Where does it come from? That's the Amnaya. Amnaya means the revealed scriptures headed by Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, all of as given to us by realized souls, given to us by pure devotees, not by some scholar or something. They can know Sanskrit like anything, but it doesn't have any potency if it's not given by the devotee and not explained by the devotees, pure devotees. So Amnaya, and what do they declare? The foundation of this whole movement: Krishna is God. That's the first point. Right? Sound important? Yeah. Krishna is God. But what about that Krishna? He has all these Shaktis, all these energies. You're one of them. There's the internal energy, marginal energy, and then there's the external energy. We're living in it. But he's not just a powerhouse. He's a person. Rasabdim. He's a person. Rasa Vaisa, it says, that he's made of rasa. the whole purpose of his life is to enjoy and give enjoyment to his pure devotees by engaging in relationships in Sakya Ras and Madhurya Ras and Vatsalya Ras and even Dasya Ras, all those. That's the whole point of it. Just like in this world, there was a song many years ago, "Love makes the world go round," something like that. What's really valuable in this world? Well, of course, it's family. Yeah, family is a place where you exchange loving thing. You have intimate relations. And without that, what is it? It's like a desert scape. You may have all the money in the world. Who is that? The guy who was the big tycoon, the newspaper man, but he was all alone. He was up in San Francisco or something. There was a movie made of him. What is it? Howard Hughes? Yes. Not Howard Hughes. No, not Howard Hughes. That was later. Anyway, I forget the name, but the whole point of the movie was that he had all this money, but he was alone. He didn't have anyone, and he was remembering at the end when he was a little kid on a sled, and his mother, there's some relationship there, So what's the point of it? And there's so many millions of people. They may not be billionaires, millionaires, whatever. But if the whole thing is focused on material, on getting and spending and the material relationships, then it's a tragic waste of human life. And ultimately, you fail in that. And in this world where there's no understanding of, even basic principles of not hurting other living beings like animals, all this meat eating going on, you're undoubtedly going to lose the human form and go back down and come back up. So this whole movement is based on that simple, these simple principles. Is that your spirit, not matter? You have an eternal relation with the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Person. We've lost that. That's really where our happiness can be, and we're eternal souls. Therefore, we have to have eternal source of happiness, source of bliss, and it's only there in the eternal world that's pure, made of pure spirit. Once you get into the material world and forget about the Supreme Spirit, you're lost. No matter if you may be a very good person, like that, but it's not good enough. It won't save you from taking another birth. So Bhagavatam is teaching us that, and the social order is important to really strive to manifest these Brahmanical qualities, and because after all, we come into this world with nothing, we leave with nothing, we don't really own anything. We pretend to. We're all thieves when we start owning stuff. So Ishamashamidam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. Taina Chaktena Bundita Magwadakasisi. We're entitled to our maintenance, we can have. But not anything that's beyond that, and then which just produces greediness and conflict and everything. So that's part of the lesson here. And but because the whole environment of this pastime is really material, how can we get our kingdom back? And it's going to end badly for Indra. What happens is that after he kills Vritrasura, now he's offended one Brahmin and killed two other Brahmins. So now he says, "Oh my God, I've got all these sinful reactions coming," and his sinful reaction comes in the form of this old woman, tubercular woman, following him. Yeah, you remember that? And he takes shelter in a lake. I forget which Sarovar he's, and he has to breathe through a straw because he's underwater, so he's hiding for thousands of years. That's Brahma's fate in this. Yeah. Because it all started with him being too proud and ignoring his guru, and then he gets the blessing of having trashta, but he can't stand the fact that he has some. He wasn't doing any harm. He was offering some oblations to the demons, But he's a spy for the demons. Boom, fly off the handle, and then does something. What have I done? To say it's always with him. What have I done? Oh no! And so then he has to, like he came to Krishna. Right? Oh, I'm really sorry. I tried to kill all your friends and cows. So this is a lesson for us. If you allow yourself to be controlled by the lower modes of nature, you'll do things that you may really regret, especially if you have some background in devotional service. Oh, I wish I hadn't offended that devotee. Now why? I'm not getting any taste while chanting. This one story, then I'll stop. In L.A. back in the 70s, I was, a senior brahmachari. I'd been in the movement 2 years, or 3 years. So they gave me some duties with the new bhaktas, to preach them, encourage them, like that. All right. So I remember this boy came to me and said, I don't get any more taste from chanting, so what happened? He says, well, I had a fight with one of the other devotees, and I punched him, I hit him. I said, oh, that's very bad, that's very bad. So you should go and try to, bow down to him and get forgiveness like that, and, everything. So the next day I saw him, and he was in the same state. What happened? He said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't approach him, this was too much, I said, oh, no, that's going to be bad for you. It's going to be hard for you. And he lost his taste. He lost his interest. Krishna doesn't let you get any pleasure from chanting. That's the punishment. If you offend, that's the price to pay for the offenses. So we should remember that whatever we do in devotional service is by the grace of the Lord. And if we offend, especially if we offend the spiritual master, then we don't get his mercy. There's nothing we can do. We sing it every morning. Yasya prasada bhagavan. Yasya prasada. That's why those diacritics are so important. Yasya prasada nagati katopi. It means without the prasad, without the grace of the Guru, nothing can be done. That's what we're learning here. They lost the grace of the Guru. We're paralyzed. But more importantly, you can't progress in devotional service. So therefore, vigilance is very important. To always be conscious of what you're doing, so you don't do something that you then regret, like Indra. His practice, his whole life is doing stuff and regretting, and trying to get forgiveness. So, okay, it's late. Any questions, comments on this part? Ishtadev Prabhu.
William Randolph first.
That's it. William Randolph first.
First, we had that castle and San Steve had reported all of these architecture. Yeah, Hearst had imported so much art and architecture from Europe. He spent a fortune on all this. I mean, he was that San Simeon Castle. I've never been there, but I understand it's absolutely lavish.
Wow. Now, wasn't he the one who was really involved with the Spanish-American War? I think that was the whole thing. Remember the Maine, right?
Yeah.
Which was actually, I think it was a false flag, and so he could take
Something
over.
like that, yeah. But no, he had incredible wealth, and yet he was...
Yes, he was all alone, miserable. Yeah, that's the thing. Wealth can't make you happy, unless it's used for Krishna service. Then it makes you very happy. Ambarish is very blissful, the devotee. I remember I knew him in Miami when I was there. He had kind of been burned from some devotees, and so he was a little bit reclusive at that time. He had a nice house. I don't know if it was built for him or not, but a little south of Miami, and we would go and do programs there. And eventually we had a nice relationship because I never asked him for a penny. I would another devotee, one devotee wanted to go to India. He was knocking on his gate, and it was, but over time, that reluctance was removed, and he performed tremendous service. The first big thing he did, you may not know, was to build Prabhupada's Pushpa Samadhi in Mayapur. Pushpa Samadhi is where you take flowers that were either offered or, in Prabhupada's face, on his body as a garland, after when he disappeared. And you take that. I was part of the ceremony. I happened to be there. Not when Prabhupada disappeared, but a few days later. But we went to Mayapur, and this whole ceremony put it in the ground where they can build the nice structure. And there was a lot of confusion in ISKCON at the time. It wasn't getting built. He built it himself. It was like $13 million. If you go there, you'll see it's a wonderful, beautiful structure. And of course, for years that was the most impressive building there. But now, of course, the TOVP, which is very much involved with. He gave the first seed money, I don't know how many million to start it, and he's been involved in fundraising. He has such a credibility. Here's Ford, the heir of Ford. I said, oh, does he have billions? No, but he has millions, and he's given a good part of it. And so when he talks in audiences that are there are people with money there who are Vaishnavas, he has a lot of credibility, and so he's a tremendous fundraiser. asset, in which he's dedicated his life to build that TLVP, which is at least 100 million that needs to be raised, which he's not giving that, but he's working to raise it. So, he's a very, very wonderful devotee to sacrifice all that. Yeah, he's a wonderful wife and a beautiful family. Okay, if there's no other discussion, we can end. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't. It's so rare that you have a question.
So, Prabhu, there are few sampradayas wherein the thing you mentioned, mantra, so that they keep that as a secret.
Uh-huh.
So, what is the rationale or what's the idea behind?
Well, if you keep it a secret, then you can sell it.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
there's a story about that.
Huh.
With Ramanujacharya. Did you ever? So Ramanujacharya, his first guru was an impersonalist, but he taught him the mantra. I think Om Namo Narayanaya or something like that, right? And so, but he told him, keep it secret. Keep it secret. Don't tell anyone. So, but he said, this is a very powerful mantra. We can liberate and everything. So Ramanuja immediately went to the high place and said, everyone come. I got a mantra to tell you about. You can get the liberation. And he gave it to everybody. And his guru said, what did you do? I told you not to do it. You disobeyed me. I know, Master. If I'm scheduled to go to hell, that's okay. But at least, this mantra, if it's effective, as you mentioned how glorious it is, then everyone should have it. So, eventually, was it that guru who tried to kill him? There was an attempt on his life. Because he was arguing against his guru's Mayavad philosophy, and another guru, different guru. Okay, all right. So that wasn't the guru, but of course he left and became Ramanujacharya. So Prabhupada was very, very pointedly giving the Hare Krishna mantra. Give it out, mantra cards, everybody, try to get as many people to chant. We're not asking anything. Of course, it's kind of a trick, because if you really get serious, then you end up giving your whole life. But that's to your best benefit, you understand? I don't know, you're taking me kind of seriously here. But that's really but the Hare Krishna mantra is so powerful and so wonderful that you realize, yes, I should give, whatever I have, and if possible, to surrender completely. But that's this I mean, it's a scam, I mean, the mantra they give that I understood, the TM guys, it's like Aim, right? AIMG, Aim Gurave Namaha. We learned from Brahmins, All right, $35, and I'll give you this much. And then it said, but don't tell anybody. And then they find out, hey, what mantra did you get? Aim. Well, that's the mantra I got. You mean he's giving the same mantra to everybody? The whole thing is, I mean, there are some benefits from meditating morning and evening, I mean, there's something there. But there were many devotees in the early days, because who had come from there. They had done TM and they met devotees, and and by developing good concentration techniques is good. And chant Hare Krishna, apply it there. That's all I do. So that's my take, and I hope it's not too flippant for you, but I think that's what I understand. Keep it secret, No, shout it from the rooftops. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.